Welcome back. A bill expanding the federal government's mandate to detain immigrants who are in the U.S. illegally is expected to be the first measure President Trump signs into law in the coming weeks. The House passed the Republican-led bill with support from 46 Democrats. The measure was also approved in the Senate with bipartisan support on Monday. Let's bring in our panel. Daniella Diaz is a congressional reporter for Politico. Jasmine Wright, a reporter for NOTUS. Great to have both of you here, two of the best. So, Jasmine, we'll begin with you. You're at the White House now covering President Trump. How is President Trump and his allies, how are they handling this week based on your reporting?
Yeah, well, I think that they believe that they're having an extremely efficient week. A lot of the promises that he made over those 2 years on the campaign trail, they say that they're fulfilling, a lot of them through executive order, but they're fulfilling them and they're doing it quite quickly. I was talking to one person who was a former Trump official, and they said that just looking at the cadence of things that have happened in the first 4 days at Trump's White House compared to 2017 is night and day. And so therefore, this White House is more organized, it's more structured than what he had previously. Now, I think that there are a couple of things that are working against them. Particularly, there are not a lot of people right now working at the White House. They've only filled out about a third of the people that they wanted to fill out in terms of the 4,000 political appointees that are around the government. And so some things are happening a little bit slower. They're kind of getting used to where they are, where the light switches are, and all those types of things. But they feel that the cadence that Trump is on right now, already speaking to foreign leaders, already putting out executive order after executive order, already fulfilling the promises that he made on immigration, repealing certain EOs on energy and other things like that, that it is going exactly how they planned, not just in the last 3 months in transition, but also in the last 2 years, all those kind of Trump-aligned think tanks and what they've been planning while he was out of office.
So there's certainly a rapid pace coming from President Trump and his allies inside the White House. Daniella, we just spoke to a Catholic bishop who's opposing the immigration policies being outlined by President Trump. But there's also opposition on Capitol Hill. You've been covering Democrats. What are you learning about how Democrats are handling President Trump this week, especially on immigration?
Well, I think the bigger picture here is that a lot of Democrats are voting with President Trump and immigration, and that's the problem, right? We're seeing progressives in the Democratic caucus, in the House, and in the Senate really divided on how they need to respond in a Trump administration when it comes to this issue of immigration, when that's what the Republicans went on in November. So there was actually some infighting in the Democratic House with the Congressional Hispanic Caucus members, who, of course, lead on this issue, are always the ones that talk about this. They had a meeting where House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries actually stopped by to listen, where they were saying, you know, we need to have a better cohesive message on tackling this issue, considering we're watching more battleground district Democrats vote with Republicans, for example, on the Laken Riley Act. I mean, it got a lot of support in the Senate from red state Democrats, you know, talking Arizona, Nevada. So it's an issue that they have to grapple with, that they haven't figured out yet, that we're seeing happening in real time for how they're going to handle this, considering they have midterms coming up in 2 years. Also crazy talking about midterms, but it is something that always happens right after an election. And
you mentioned Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House. Jasmine, you've spent a lot of time covering the Democrats in recent years.
Yeah.
Based on your reporting, your conversation with your sources, Vice President Harris, President Biden, Hakeem Jeffries, who's leading the Democratic Party right now, if anyone?
I mean, I think that's the question on most Democrats' mouths. Who is going to really step up to the call? I don't think Democrats want to hear from Joe Biden. Obviously, he was last in Washington on Monday. He says that he is going to stick around. I think people are very openly questioning how much that's going to be, not just due to his age, but seriously due to his position in the party. The vice president went back to California. Obviously, she is considering her next steps. Who knows really what those will look like? And so I think that the Democratic Party is kind of leaderless, and they know that. They're hoping that these elections for the Democratic National Committee chair kind of fill in some of that vacuum as they look for a larger leader to come on and really make some decisions about where the party should go and how the party should operate in this new Trump age. But certainly I think that there's a lot of confusion about what happened in November and how they kind of lost so decisively, even though they managed to stave off some of the larger losses on the House side. There's some confusion about that and the way to go forward, but also about who can be this kind of new generation leader to patch together a Democratic Party that in a lot of ways feels really fragmented.
Let's pull up on the screen Senator Murkowski and Senator Susan Collins. We began the program tonight by talking about the Hegseth nomination on Capitol Hill. He has not yet been confirmed. Two Republican senators are publicly opposed now to Mr. Hegseth and his nomination for Secretary of Defense. Danielle, in the last few minutes, what's the mood, the talk on Capitol Hill? Are there any new developments?
There are developments. Actually, just while you have been on air, a story broke that actually Hegseth paid a woman who accused him of sexual assault in 2017 $50,000. That's a report that has not been out yet. That was in a report that Senator Elizabeth Warren got in her questioning of Hegseth. And even though the Senate just voted to advance Hegseth to be defense secretary, and we saw Murkowski and Collins vote against it, this report could be damaging for him ahead of the vote, the final vote to confirm him tomorrow. So while this is still developing, it's going to be really interesting to see those senators who may have been on the fence about Hegseth and then decided to support him, namely Joni Ernst is someone I'm thinking about. Yeah. And this has always been an issue for her when talking about sexual assault in the military. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this develops. I'm sure that we're going to get more statements from senators, definitely Democratic senators, in the time to come. But it's just a day, less than a day until that vote, and it's going to be pretty dramatic considering this report just broke.
And Daniella, briefly, for those who don't follow this every minute, what's the math? Yeah. So you have Senator Murkowski, Senator Collins, they're public no's. If Senator Ernst decides to vote no, which she has not announced yet, how many votes can Hegseth lose at this point to be confirmed?
It really depends on absences. I can't decide or predict what will be the case tomorrow, but another senator voting against Hegseth will potentially be what could break this nomination, because if every single Democrat votes against him, which is what we saw happen in the procedural votes leading up to his confirmation. So really, this report coming out right before his vote tomorrow could potentially make it so that he doesn't become defense secretary.
All eyes on Senator Ernst and perhaps Senator McConnell and others. We'll see. A lot of people have been quiet. Daniella Diaz, Jasmine Wright, thank you so much for stopping by. We appreciate it.